Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings, planet Earth. Welcome to Extraordinary Gear. My name is Tim Bravo. I thank you for listening in. T-minus 107 days until December 21st, 2012. Almost into only double-digit days left on our little countdown. Ladies and gentlemen, this is truly our first global broadcast. We've had international editions before, but tonight's panel is live from 3 different countries and 4 different time zones, 5 if you count me. From America's better-looking sibling, Canada, we have Steve Becko, curator of the website, the2012scenario.com. Really good to have you back on, Steve.
Hi, Tim. Hi, everyone.
From the 50th United States, we are joined for the first time by Kawila Pele, whose blog is a daily read for so many lightworkers. Aloha, Kawila Pele.
Aloha, everyone, and thank you, Tim, for having Hawaii on the call.
And we've got another first-timer, a journalist who's released so many interviews I personally consider to be landmark discussions. Our sister from another hemisphere, Lisa M. Harrison, is with us from the country that is its own continent, Australia. G'day, Lisa.
Hello, g'day. Well, thank you for representing Australia and women on this otherwise all-male panel.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. And also joining us tonight, and I think he might be on the line now, Dr. Joe, are you out there?
I'm here.
The reason that I wanted to have you all together, I'll tell you a quick story. Years ago, I had a job where I would run audio on weekend mornings at a local TV station. It was a news station. One of my favorite things about that job, I got paid to watch Meet the Press on Sundays. I really love how Tim Russert would hold panel discussions with top seasoned journalists and people from Fox News, too. He was fair and balanced guy. I personally got a lot of value out of the discussions that they had because these were people who really knew the stories. They were the reporters. They knew and understood the issue at hand because they were immersed in it like nobody else was. And they were able to come to the table and have the discussion from that knowing, that understanding. Plus, it was always nice to get a look at their honest feelings about an issue. They weren't reporting, so they didn't have to speak like a reporter. They just spoke like someone who knew the topic with a group of other people who knew the topic. But the world has changed since those days. Tim Russert has passed on, and in a way, to me, so has journalism. In the Western world, we don't really have mainstream access to news sources that don't rely on corporate advertising and sponsorship. Because of this, more than ever, mainstream media's so-called news is little more than the communications division of the powerful few who run this planet. That said, we still have our beloved internet, and the freedom and connection available to us here it spawned a new sort of journalist. Of course, they're not called journalists. They're called bloggers, YouTubers, streamers. But in the end, they are the gutsy and dedicated folks who put their reps on the line to say things that may not be popular. They are the light workers who shine their light on things the general public doesn't know, things some people will ridicule them for, things some people will fear, leading sometimes to threats and worse. And still, these alternative news people do their work, not for money or fame, but for the dream, for the goal we all share, a world awakened. And for the growing number of awakened souls on this planet who start and end their days checking feeds, uploads, updates, they are heroes. They are like friends. They are like family. So I wanted to bring on this crew, in part to honor them for their service, and, of course, to put together a panel of our journalists that would be worthy of Tim Russert's Meet the Press. That's why you guys are here. That's why I've asked you to come on. Let me ask you, and feel free to jump into the discussion, any of you at any point, how do you guys see the state of journalism today?
Can we start with Tim Russert?
Is Tim Russert on the line?
That would be nice.
Tim Russert was allegedly assassinated, Tim. He was alleged to be ready to spill the truth about 9/11. And, well, I guess I don't want to name the person who's said to have done him in because that person's still alive and around. But nonetheless, he was taken out of the picture because he was about to come down on the side of 9/11 being an inside job. So I hope I've earned my pay for the evening.
Well, yeah, that's powerful information, and I guess not really a surprising thought. And so how do you think that maybe the death of Tim Russert has affected journalism, and where do you guys see it today? Do you think that there's any bright, shining light anywhere out there, or where are we? Are we totally devoid of honest news on a global scale?
There's only one word that comes to mind for me, and that's irrelevant.
The news that we get is irrelevant?
Yeah, essentially. It's got no bearing on the majority of people's day-to-day lives that I can see. I mean, I haven't watched it for a very long time. So unless something's changed dramatically out there that no one's brought to my attention, then it's irrelevant to me.
I occasionally will tune into I'll occasionally tune into one of the local Hawaii stations, for their 10 o'clock p.m. news, and then it's like I see it for about 2 minutes, and then it's like, no, I don't need to watch it. It's always the first 2 minutes are like, well, it's like my grandma used to be. Who died today? But one thing I would point out, I feel like there's so much that's happened that people are allowing the news to come to them through these alternate sources that, and it's amazing how many people, based upon, certainly I know what I'm doing kind of started by watching what Steve was doing and a couple others, and they're putting out these newsletters or these Yahoo groups, and you're actually getting some news that otherwise you never heard about. And so for me, that was really important. And also, I know that since just noticing things since I've started the Kawilo Pele blog, I noticed how many other people have blogs now, and they're actually being their own journalists.
Agreed.
So we have a lot of journalists out there, and there's so many of them that it's impossible to silence all of them.
Well, unless they can gain control of the internet, or they have sneaky little ways of getting around it that, we hear things like today. I don't know how long this has been out there, but today I learned that Apple has been granted a patent for the ability to turn off your iPhone's camera at will, depending on your location. So say that there's something happening somewhere that people don't want documented, the iPhone's all shut off. They're trying to find ways around it. But I don't say that to disagree with you. I just say that they're definitely, I think that the people who would keep us down are still really they're working hard.
Well, there's been lots of rumors around Murdoch lately. Sorry.
I'm sorry, what was that, Lisa?
Well, there's been lots of rumors around Murdoch of late. And
what have you heard?
It'd be interesting to see, that he's either in a position of trying to extricate himself from the control and liberate his media network from the control, or that that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is he's somehow gotten out of favour with them and they're out to ruin him. Either way, if he's able to extricate himself, it would be interesting to see what he then does with that newfound freedom. Whether it's because they kicked him out or whether he's just been to extricate himself, either way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that kind of fits into the containment rumors that we've heard, and Steve, you could probably speak to that better than I can.
Sure, and I was going to at some point to speak to that, but just before we do, Quilla, why don't you mute? Yeah, there you go. Let's go back a few years in history and look at, for instance, Operation Mockingbird, which was a CIA program to take over the media. And at first just a program to use a lot of money to buy foreign correspondents and things like that. But then after a while, given the success of that effort, it became a program to actually to buy up media until now. I think we're down to a very small number of media corporations, and these are all largely controlled by
the Thrive movie.
That's the figure I was going to say, but I wasn't quite sure if it was 5, but something like that. And the media corporations are administered by the CIA at this time, or if not by the CIA all the time, then by the National Security State, which after 9/11 mushroomed, and of course was designed to mushroom. And people who stepped out of line have been killed. I mean, Tim Russert is not the only media person who's, or for that matter, whistleblower or anything else who's been assassinated. There have been a long run of them. And anybody, on the one hand, anybody who tries to report it is killed. Anybody who steps out of line, like the gentleman who rigged the Diebold electro machines and was going to testify before one of the state courts, his airplane was blown up. I think his name might have been Mitchell. Can't quite remember at this moment. But there's been a lot of assassination used to keep people under control. And there's been a closing down of news programs one after the other, anything in depth, anything that did any bit of investigation. All of it has been closed down. If anybody remembers what the scene was like, say, 10 years ago or 20 or 30, it was rich, but nowadays it's just not. I'll come back to containment in a sec, Tim, but maybe I should give others a chance to comment.
Anybody? Well, let's go ahead and do the containment thing then, because I know that was kind of a hot topic word for the last several weeks, and that Murdoch's name has been mentioned in connection with the program. So sure. What have you heard along those lines?
Well, Lisa and Joe, are you familiar with what containment represents?
Not entirely, no.
No, Joe?
Are you referring to the energetic field that is placed around these individuals to raise their vibration to a certain area, and also to keep them from particular individuals from doing more harm than good? Is that what we're talking about?
We're in the same ballpark. Did you want to give a discussion of it?
I'm sorry?
Did you want to give a discussion of it?
Why don't you lead? I think that you're probably more an expert on this. I've been following your shows there, and I would much rather yield the time to you for this particular part, and maybe speak a little bit after you get started.
Sure, okay, that's fine with me.
Congenial, you guys.
Yeah, right. This is not like the typical North American news show, is it?
No.
Where we should all be talking.
All right.
Okay.
It can be not like the typical news show in any way it can want to, as far as I'm concerned.
You bet, yeah. So, first of all, your listeners should know that the people that are here that are helping us to turn back the cabal, the Illuminati, the military-industrial complex, whatever you want to call it, exist on various dimensions. They're mostly invisible to us in the third dimension, and include angels and archangels. So the containment strategy is really something that angels and archangels only can do, and it's the imposition of a light box around an individual, which if they try to do something malevolent, it reflects it back to them in an energetic impulse, which more or less causes them to stop. And then it follows up that black energy impulse with a flooding of love, which is kind of like the alternative. So the evil, the malevolent impulse did not succeed, but then they experienced this tremendous wave of love. And my understanding, and so before long, the people contained stop what it is they're doing. Now, there was much talk about mass arrests. Those apparently won't be happening. Instead, this containment is being used. And my understanding is that all the top level of the Illuminati are now contained, as well as the second level. And so in containment are figures like Vladimir Putin, Bashar al-Assad, Jamie Dimon with Morgan Chase, for instance, Supreme Court Justice John Roberts. So when you see Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, for instance, voting, so to speak, or if you like, giving a judgment in favor of Obamacare, which you would not expect him to do, he's doing this as a result of being contained. Or Jamie Dimon. I actually don't follow the mainstream media very much, so I just vaguely remember Jamie Dimon taking a really radical stand, like saying something like, yes, we should all give back our bonuses or stop being paid this much or something. We're going to see people all over the world taking radically different positions now because they are in containment, and people may have noticed that it's very peaceful in many areas of the world at this moment. There's not a lot that's happening. The deep underground military bunkers have been exploded and taken out. I believe HARP has been shut down, so no more hurricanes and tsunamis and earthquakes and all of that. And one by one, the cabal's weapons of whatever kind have been taken out of commission. It's been a long, long time since nuclear bombs could be exploded on the planet. So this coalition of light forces on the other side of the curtain, which David Wilcock calls management, Proof calls the guys in the rafters, they have been, over time, taking down the cabal, and the cabal is just about taken fully down now. And you can expect now to see people who were tremendously dark all of a sudden acting in ways which are tremendously light. And that's kind of the next thing to watch for. So that's containment. I'll turn it over to somebody else now.
Well, just a question in regard to that. Is that along the lines of what Cobra was talking about? I can't remember the code name you gave for it. It was like Stardust or something.
I actually asked about that some time ago. No, well, yes and no. There are other programs as well. The various galactic coalitions that are here. Stephen Cook in Australia is saying to me, no, not the same. Thank you, Stephen. We should have Stephen on the show, Tim.
Yeah, we really should.
Well, shall I have him call in?
A quick shout out to Steve.
Okay.
Well, as long as we're doing a panel, why not?
Sure, I'll direct you.
I know he's out there. I know Stephen is out there.
He's in Australia too, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Here, I have the number now. I'm going to send it to him. So the other galactics have other tools, and one of them is this thing called Stardust, but it's also called various other names. But they have different functions than containment. They, I guess Stephen will probably be able to tell you what those functions are. But so it's not quite the same as containment, but it is another one of the strategies that's being used. Some of these people, cabal people, are being taken off planet. Some are being sequestered. There's all kinds of things that are happening. So I'm just trying to think of some other examples of initiatives. Well, for instance, they're removing the depleted uranium from the air. They've removed lots of the other, and when I say they, I mean the galactics, have removed lots of the other radioactive elements. They contain Fukushima, and you will hear a lot of reports from American agencies, part of the national security apparatus, who say, oh, Fukushima's going off the map. Well, no, it's not. The NOAA, the National Oceanic something administration, can't remember what it stands for, example of an agency which has been doing the cabal's business for many years, and they will give you analyses of radioactive clouds and various things like that, which look very, very bad, but in fact they're exaggerating, they're doing the cabal's business. So let me stop there, Tim.
Well, let me ask you a question about this real quick, Steve, because I think I can segue this into kind of what I wanted to bring up next. We know these things because of why?
We know these things because of the communications from the Galactics and the Celestials and the Ascended Masters. Most people don't realize that they do communicate with us. They communicate through mediums, through telepathic individuals who write down their messages and we publish them, and many are not credible. Many originate from the national security apparatus. Stephen is saying he thinks it would put an imbalance in the panel. He can call in 15 minutes if we feel there's still the need, but he would rather others spoke today. So there you go. Always a gentleman. It's up to you, Tim.
All of you guys are. Well, Stephen, you are most welcome to call in, and we will also like to speak with you at another point down the line as well, in addition to. So feel free, sir.
One of the things that, if I might chime in here, this is Kawil Pele, I just was noting that in his last update, Benjamin Fulford mentioned that former Prime Minister, I believe it's Nauta Khan, had said that, had given some hints about the fact that, some hints that, yes, indeed, the 3/11 event was a type of, in other words, he basically said, well, there was a plan to evacuate 30 million people from the greater Tokyo area. And the other thing that he said was that, he told Japanese foreign corporate media representatives that his best explanation for why the Fukushima nuclear plants did not go into full meltdown was, quote, divine intervention, unquote. So that has some support there.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and he's not really, his updates don't tend to wax spiritual too often. It's basically nuts and bolts reporting of the situation on the ground in the human world. I think that's probably interesting that, he put that in there. Though I think he's mentioned divine intervention or at least extraterrestrial intervention in regard to nukes and stuff. So it's not unheard of. But, we're talking about things, Steve was mentioning things, like the channelings, the communications that we get from other levels of reality. And I know that everyone on this panel is obviously open to things like mental telepathy, channeling, communication from other levels of reality. Because, I don't mean to speak for you guys, but based on your work, I'm going to say it's safe to say that you all, are at least open to those things. But we also
definitely open to them.
We also know how many people around us are not open to those things. And
just because you can't see it, Tim, don't mean it don't exist. Just if I can jump in here, if the human body is limited to a certain visual acuity, and beyond, say, to the left and to the right, there's ultrasound, or I guess I should say X-ray, there's infrared, and other things that the human body cannot perceive, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And through my own personal experience and my own growth, I was born and raised a scientist. I always questioned, the things that just didn't make sense to me. And so, I went through traditional education and medicine, but it still never made sense to me. So, when you ask the question and you want the truth, be careful for what you wish for, because you're going to get it. And I'll tell you, a friend of mine, Terry Ippoletti, she walked into my life in my urgent care center, a few years back, and she was a hypnotherapist, and she did this thing called, automatic writing and spontaneous channeling. And she didn't know, really what she was doing. One minute she's conscious, and the next minute she's waking up saying, I don't even know what I just said, what's going on here? So in my own personal experience, we went and some people will say that channeling is inaccurate and you got to watch, and that's true, because we started out at the lowest level, and that's the best way I can describe it, and we worked our way up through the angelic realm and then the ET realm, and the higher up you went, the more accurate the information came. But there is a thing with each channeled individual. The information that flows through is energetic in nature and has to use the information that that particular person or body or their consciousness in this lifetime has acquired. So some of the information that might come across in some instances, let me give you an example. If somebody is not totally clear, all their chakras, if they're carrying a lot of baggage, if they're more on a negative path, more negative things will come through. But if the people that can do that do the work and they clear themselves and get to a higher state of being, and therefore energetically they're in a higher state, they're tapping into these higher sources of love and light. And all of a sudden, this information flows through, and you can discern for yourself whether it's true or not. And another variable to consider here is everybody's truth is different, depending on where their awareness is. At one point, I just thought that the archangels, wow, they're the highest up there. But really, later on in my exploration, I found out that, say, Archangel Michael, yes, he's an archangel. That's an aspect of himself, but I also know him as a Syrian light warrior. So I don't know if I've said enough, or I'd like somebody else to jump in to see what everybody else says about this. But that's my own personal journey, my own personal experience. So when somebody tells me that this stuff doesn't exist, and there it is in front of me, and I'm a scientist through scientific method, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, whoa, this is really cool, and it's right in front of me, and I can ask any question, and there's the answer. Now I have to decide for myself, is it true to me personally? How does that relate to me in this instance where my awareness is and my energetic flow is right now? And then some of the things that have been told to me at that particular time, I didn't quite get, but later on, it was like a seed that was planted, and I look back and go, oh, man, they did say that, and here it has come to pass. I just wasn't ready for it at the time, because my truth was different then.
Well, and I think you made us... Please go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to make a statement that for myself personally, yeah, absolutely open to it, and I know that there's a lot out there that's genuine, but we are living in the disinformation age, and a lot of it isn't. And at no time in like the present have we needed some serious discernment, and whether that's people like myself who we're putting ourselves out there, and the people that we're choosing to speak to, and the information we're choosing to share, or people who are doing it privately and just tuning into this stuff, discernment is key.
Absolutely.
There was a point in my life that I started to realize that, the guidance would come from in different ways, and it was almost like when I first started, I think when I first kind of met Steve in an internet kind of way, I was really starting to wake up to who a higher aspect of my own self, and I feel like a lot of people are having that experience right now, that they're waking up to a higher part of themselves. And one of the things that has always, I guess, that I try and encourage is to, for people to learn to start trying to, follow this higher communication. And as you do that, or at least in my case, I'll just that was what the point was that one part of my growth involved a program, and I learned that just you share your experience. In other words, I share my experience, and when I'm quote reporting, I mean, I will write things. I will write what Salusa has written, or someone else has written.
While you're having your morning coffee.
Right. Well, I'm slurping my morning coffee, which everybody can.
We enjoy it.
Those are good. At Joe's, is it?
No, it's called Java on the Rock. There's only one, and but we get that a lot of times it's like this it's like a lot of people are sharing their own experience. And it's almost like this higher communication, rather than saying, well, I'm telling you what's happening. I would rather say, this is this is what I've read, this is what I feel is happening, or this is what I see is happening. This is my discernment. It's not telling you that is your discernment. And to me, that's a higher form of communication. And I really find that someone like Jeffrey West, in his Cosmic Vision News, I mean, that's the only kind of news. That's the only news program I listen to for the whole hour.
Absolutely.
Because he does call upon that higher discernment, and he offers, well, there's this interpretation, there's that interpretation, but then we each call upon our higher discernment to glean the truth for ourselves. It doesn't say it's the truth or the discernment for someone else. It's sort of a fuzzy kind of a deal in a way, but everyone has their own aspect of looking at things, I guess.
Well, and I think you and Lisa are both kind of saying the same thing, in the need for discernment. Well, how do you do that? You go inside and you do connect with that part of yourself, and that is something that only you can do.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what people are starting to tap into.
Yeah,
that's true. So a lot of the things that some of us are finding that we're getting, we get the same things, and then we may talk with each other, and it's like, well, were you feeling this today? And I have some very good friends who I meet a lot at Java on the Rock, and I just will say, I was kind of sensing this. It's like, okay, I was sensing the disturbance in the force. There's something going on. And she said, there was someone, they would say, oh, yes, exactly. That's what was happening. That's what I felt. So a lot of times I feel that we are going through a lot of the same energetic experiences. And by putting it out there, whether it's me or someone else or, 2012 scenario, whatever it is, it's like, people can start to identify and say, "Oh, I'm not the only one."
So there's a lot of that too. I hear a lot recently about so many people having trouble sleeping, and I know that my wife and myself are not exception. It's something that we've been struggling with, and we're both just kind of like independently, like, what's the deal with this? Why is this happening? Why can't we get a good night's sleep? And just so many other people I've heard that from, just throughout the lightworker community. It seems to be a phenomenon. I wonder if somebody could write some code and scrub the internet to see if it's some sort of a trend. Anyway,
that's probably what we rely on channel messages to tell us about. Interestingly, Tim, 2 nights ago I didn't sleep a wink all night, which was grueling. Yeah. And last night again I didn't sleep till maybe 7 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
But again, if one searches the various communications that are coming, oftentimes they will tell you. Clearly, you're quite a bit more psychic than, you're way more psychic than I am. I don't consider myself psychic at all, but you've had a lot of experiences in this area. I remember back on Galactic Roundtable, you were telling us a lot about those.
Well, there's quite a few. The great thing about this planet and this universe, especially this planet the way it is now, I mean, there's a lot of, I can tell you, thank God, there's a lot of strange people on this planet right now, and it's strange meaning they're not normal. They don't.
We're all on the line.
That's right. I mean, you got Tim, and you got Steve, and you got Lisa, and Dr. Joe, and it's like we're. And I've talked with Tolek, and it's like these folks are getting these things. And it's like, well, I just sat down, and all of a sudden I just got this download, or this or that, and we each have a different. I feel that we've been trained. We're being trained continuously. We're being encouraged to lose the dross or the baggage that we don't need to carry anymore. And I know in my own case, it's just like I don't analyze anything anymore. I mean, I used to be very intellectual. I operated from that, mental framework. But now it's like I hardly do any of that. It's like I just get something and it says, oh, I got to take a walk. And then I'll walk outside, I'll walk a little bit, and I'll look up in the sky, and there's this face looking at me. And or there's some message that I'll get from the walk, or it's like it's something that's I guess I wrote about the other day. It's sort of like this insistent little nudge that really isn't little, but it seems like it's very powerful, and it just keeps pushing and says, "Now listen, just listen." And the thing that I'm finding though is the messages that really I'll call it resonate, that really kind of ring a bell, are the ones that bring up an upwelling of joy. Like there's something that I really want to do that. Like I really want, oh my goodness, I want to go to Volcano. I want to go to Volcano again. And there's something that will, and it happens to be, say, at the 8/8, August 8th. Well, I felt like going to Volcano. And it's like, in that way, I feel like the higher ups or the universe is connecting us with our true nature, which is joy, and encouraging us one step at a time to get out of this always analyzing everything, and just to start following that higher direction.
Well, that's one thing with awakening and ascension. The idea of turning back the intellectual mind might be one of the biggest challenges for a lot of people. And speaking of big challenges, I want to know what you guys see as our current biggest challenge. I'm sure I'll get a number of different responses, but what do you guys see as our current biggest challenge right now? Between the end, and I say that in relation to what I'm guessing, and again I want to put this out there because I don't want to speak for you guys. What I'm guessing we all agree on is that we see an awakening of humanity coming in some form, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Oh, absolutely.
And so,
absolutely.
From here to there, what's our biggest challenge? And
there's a lot of focus. There's a lot of focus on the geopolitical situation, and a lot of focus on people kind of just taking a back seat and observing it, and looking at it from the perspective of it's out of my control, so I have to try and prepare for all of these different scenarios and just see what happens. For me, the biggest challenge, and it's one of the reasons we created the Collective Imagination Project, was to get people more empowered and stepping into the idea it's not about sitting back and watching what happens. You're actually part of the show. And what do you want to happen? And start making some serious conscious and subconscious and deeply rooted choices. This is no time to sit back and see what happens.
Yes, I agree.
Definitely agree. Steve?
I mean, energetically, we are co-creators here, and we've incarnated in various soul levels, soul groups from different parts of the universe, and we all have come here to play a part in this, what many people call the ascension process or the 2012 phenomenon, or whatever you want to call it. But we are active participants if we so choose. And again, we are given free will, and we're here to, do our part, as Lisa said, and I agree. I think we're the people we've been waiting for. It's not, and we do have some help outside of ourselves to nudge us along, as some of the other speakers that are talking about. But ideally, we're supposed to do it ourselves. That's what we're here for, this experience, and to help each other through the process in whatever way feels right, or we feel in joy or inspired, we're in spirit to do. So I totally agree. And as far as what's the biggest challenge right now is for a long, long time, at least me personally, I was in my mind also. So to come to terms with this and living from the heart instead of the head has been a difficult challenge for me. And me personally, I really want to go out there and just get on a mountain and tell everybody, okay, this is what's going on, but not everybody's going to get it. So that part is a challenge to me. You have to be discernful about how much information to give each individual person that you talk to, because they may not be ready for it, and you might just totally freak them out or scare them or whatever. So you got to almost feel for where their awareness is and maybe plant a seed and just be okay with it. And that's just me personally.
Well, and that dovetails into what I was going to say. I'm just going to jump in. I was going to say that awareness, and for listeners who have been listening to the show the past few weeks, they know that I see the greatest hurdle being awareness, and that being the stone that I want to chunk away at, and and keep chipping away with my chisel, my proverbial chisel. You're right. I had an experience this last weekend. I've turned myself into somewhat of a Thrive evangelist, and I actually I tried to organize an action where people met and walked around the community and asked people that they ran into if they'd seen Thrive and if they'd check it out. And I had a nice little handout with the website, and you go watch free. I just discovered people don't like that. People don't like being approached by some strange guy who's trying to get them to watch a movie. And so I'm sitting here looking at how do I from my own standpoint reach as many people as possible and spread as much awareness of the situation, because my mantra has been, if people only knew. And so that would be my vote for biggest challenge right now, is awareness.
Well, perhaps before I give my own vote, I could say that Quilla, Jeff West, is actually listening to the program, and Jeff says, this is wonderful, eh? This is the internet.
I am so honored to have this program. We got Jeff, we got Stephen.
Yeah, Stephen. Well, Stephen's he would like us to have this time to ourselves, apparently. But so Jeff says our biggest challenge is perhaps balancing one's personal truth with the relation to life, the oneness, and making conscious choices that honor self, others, our planet, and our galactic family. This appears to be one of the bigger blocks holding things back. So thank you, Jeff.
Yes, thank you.
For me, personally, one of the biggest... so the big challenge on my end, because we're actually working with Galactics and the Celestials, is to create a global conversation. I see the echoes back, but I'll plow ahead. So now what that looks like is that we have people in China who are on the discussion group we have and are writing in. And so immediately when you begin to discuss with people from China, you have to worry about exposing them to official punishment, offending them by being certain ways. But the biggest one is the risk that you could pose to them by saying the wrong thing. We hope to move to India and Pakistan and begin a conversation that brings in people from there. And again, that will entail another level of diplomacy, so to speak. And I personally, and of course Quilla will be familiar with this, I personally have been involved with some financial projects and other light worker projects. And oftentimes they haven't succeeded. We've been in a honeymoon phase, and then we're in a tug-of-war phase, and sometimes we haven't come out of the tug-of-war phase. So now we're thinking of globally connecting in order to pull people together and speak with one voice and what have you. And I imagine that's got to be about as challenging as I can think of. So that's what's challenging.
And you mentioned, correct me if I get this number wrong, but you have something like 3,000 readers in China?
Well, that's just one network. That's just one group in China that's been following an Hour with an Angel and Cosmic Vision News and Enlightened Radio generally. And the Elsinore. That's just one group in China.
But, talking about biggest challenges, let's go a little more positive here. And what do you guys see as our biggest hidden win in like the last year? Well, maybe let's say since January 2012. What is the biggest hidden win for our side, so to speak?
That's a really good question.
That's a very good question. Darn, those good questions.
Yeah.
There's going to be a different answer for everybody because it's going to be a personal answer, I think.
Or maybe not even biggest hidden win, but just the biggest positive story or thing to happen for the alternative media, those of us who are following the light workers and freedom truthers, the alternative media.
Boy, I would have to say that it's still continuing. It hasn't been shut down yet. It's still going on, and we're still reaching thousands and thousands of people individually and collectively, and we do calls like this. So I think, that coupled with all the information that's coming out through all the various researchers that's actually making their voice heard. And we mentioned Thrive earlier, and I watched it, and I passed it on to several people who weren't ready for it and other people that were, and they were coming back saying, hey, what else do you know about this? And then you plant a little seed and you give a little more. So I would say that, in my opinion, globally, the information is getting out there, and it's still getting out there. And on a second note, I would say that the Earth, as she's raising in vibration, so are we. And I think that by the end of this year, most of us, or I don't know how to say this because this is an individual thing, but I would say that lots of people are raising an awareness, just collectively, because we're all connected as one.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago where if you wanted to learn anything, you had to go seeking. Maybe you had a personal insight or a personal awakening or experience, and you had to go looking for the information, the confirmation to back that up. Now, there's so much out there that being ignorant is completely a choice. Whether you want to go looking for it or not, it's coming to you.
Yeah. You just have to pull it out of the bag and get the right one. Because there's a lot to go through.
Yeah, no matter how asleep you are, everybody's got some friend on Facebook who's feeding them something, feeding them some information, feeding them links.
That's true. Yeah, the stuff pops up in that news feed, and new people see stuff and open up to stuff, and that's probably as above so below, a part of our awakening as it spreads on the online version of our collective reality.
That's right.
I'd like to, Quill, you go first, and then I'll follow after you.
Oh, okay. There's a lot of, I'm looking back towards, when was it? Not the beginning of this year, the beginning of last year, and the Arab, if you want to call it the Arab Revolution, and all the social media that's played a part of that. And we also have a type of social media. I think, for me, so much of it has been the blossoming of channels, that it's almost an exponential increase of the channels of information that have come out. So if one channel happened to be blocked in some way, then it's like it would be carried on by someone else. And the expansion, it's like the exponential type of, someone will put a blog out there, and others will kind of resonate with that, and then they'll put it out, and it just goes out everywhere. So I think that exponential increase in awareness is one of the things that's, I guess, been predicted, and many people have talked about it. So that's a pretty major thing.
Speaking of major things, we got about 4 minutes left here, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask the question, the big news. What's up with Neil Keenan? Does anybody know? Has anybody got an official word?
David Wilcox said he was fine. He was fine, but some of what was put out was disinformation. And,
didn't that come through Fulford piece?
Well, maybe David got it from Fulford, yeah. Could have been.
There was something earlier that came up about that, and I didn't really read much of that, but he did say that Benjamin said that in his last post was that he was accosted by someone outside of his home in Bulgaria and subsequently hospitalized. So it's almost one of those things that there's certain things that sometimes you tune into this. I say, if you try and figure all this stuff out, it says, is it worth your time to try and do that?
Yeah, well,
and is that where the news really is?
And Tim, if you ever want to do this again, you're going to have to set aside a 2-hour program.
Definitely.
No problem. We might have to. I guarantee it that between now and December 21st, we will definitely have to maybe reconvene and hash it out and see talk about what's changed.
Can I just say something for about a minute or two?
Absolutely.
Okay, so for me, the biggest wind is what Joe was talking about, that the energy is rising on this planet, and it's rising on this planet in an orchestrated manner, a manner that's designed to have us blossom, and it's being orchestrated by galactics, by the celestials, ascended masters, and it's being paced so that we should arrive at December 21st all ready for the shift. So that for me is the biggest win.
And that really is the end goal. I mean, way to bring it home, Steve. we all have talked about, to some degree, ascension, awakening, what have you. And I guess at the end of the day, or at the end of the year, it really is the point. And any news that we get along the lines of pertaining specifically to that, I think, are the most important, if we can get that. Because the rest is just the how.
By the way, Tim, ascension is the accepted way of advancing on the spirit planes. When a person moves from the astral planes to the mental planes or to the causal, the Buddhic, the Nirvanic, every time they shift dimension, it's an ascension. So this is nothing unusual. Go ahead.
And there's so many people who are coming into it from their own way. And when we talk, we don't necessarily agree on a lot of, maybe all of the interpretation. One's interpretation might be different, but again, individually, we're waking up so that collectively the entire planet is waking up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I believe that if each individual person raises their particular vibration, and you do your own inner work, just energetically, because I look at everything energetically, because everything is energy. So if you work on yourself and the people that you walk their path, you help raise their vibratory frequency and everything that you come in contact with. So people are always like, what am I supposed to do? And you know what? Work on yourself. Go within. Do the meditation. Do the work. Get rid of all the negativity, attachments, baggage, whatever you want to call it. Raise your own frequency, and therefore you help everybody because we're all collected. It's almost like a domino effect.
Absolutely.
And the reason that we're you can tell that we've entered a high vibration portal because that's why we're getting the echo.
Well, you guys, we have unfortunately run out of time, and I want to thank each and every one of you guys for doing us the honor of coming together to discuss these things. And Lisa, I think you're absolutely right. There's so much to talk about that we really didn't even touch upon, and each of you guys has such a depth of knowledge and things to share that we're going to have to do it up next time.
Thank you, Tim.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, Tim.
Excellent.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody out there, thanks for joining us. This has been an extraordinary year. I adjusted the music just for our esteemed guests because I know that the normal program can be a little bit on the abrasive side. So I wanted to leave everybody with a little bit of mellow tonight. So namaste, all of you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, everyone.
Aloha.